Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. I, of course, am here. Welcome to Hammer Live. I am Hammer, the founder of such awesome products as Originator Success, helping you to get found online, generate reviews, and stay in front of past clients, warm prospects, and real estate agents. Also, Grab and Go Social, helping you get loans from social media, and Rate Sensei, learning all about what's going on with the rate stuff. And I've got some cool stuff coming out with that one by 2026. So anyway, remember, you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, broadcasting on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're here this morning, say good morning. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here. Always appreciate that. If you'd like a quick reminder that I'm going live, you can sign up and get a text alert letting you know with the link, making it easy so you never miss the show. Sign up at hmmr.io/reminder. Of course, you can opt out anytime. And we sell your information to the Chinese. But other than that, everybody does. So no, I'm kidding. We don't sell your information. So go ahead and sign up at hmmr.io/reminder or use this cool QR code over here. Also, while you're signing up for stuff, go ahead and sign up for our daily lock advice emails. Email went out this morning, a little getting back on the horse, getting them out a little bit earlier. ratelockadvice.com. Those emails come from Rate Sensei, Hammer at ratesensei.com. If you're not getting them, make sure you check with your IT team. Sometimes they're not in your local spam or junk folder. They're being blocked on a server level. Getting through to email servers on companies these days is getting harder and harder. So check that out. Also, if you'd like to sign up for our text alerts, you can sign up for those at ratetextalerts.com. In fact, let's go ahead and take a minute and talk about what yesterday's texts were as we get into stuff, and we'll bring that up for you. So taking a look yesterday, pulling up Presentify here. There we go. All right. So you take a look in the morning yesterday, mortgage bonds were down about 7 basis points to start the day. The 10-year was at 4.10. We ended the day yesterday, not too far from that, minus 6 basis points on mortgage bonds, the 10-year at 4.11. Rates are holding steady. Once again, little reason to expect improvement from here until something changes. No JOLTS data tomorrow due to the shutdown. That's today, of course. Likely bonds will continue to drift, although not a huge urgency to lock. Still a good idea to lock near-term risk averse for protection. Not sure how markets will react when the shutdown is lifted or what data will start to trickle out. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can sign up for those text alerts. Anyway, let's go ahead and say hi to everybody here this morning, and then we'll come back to the screen. So we got Michael Scott Love. Good morning, sir. Jerry Avila. Good morning, buddy. Mike Brown, Faye Escribano, Taylor Henry, Kyle Mazikas. Good morning, Lisa. I hope you're doing well also, and Mark as well. So anyway, I see 21 of you on, but not many of you have said hello this morning. So there you go. Now it's trickling in. Brandy Brickler, good morning. Tiffany Teal. Ron Siegel said today is National Candy Day. Snickers, peanut butter, M&Ms, peanut M&Ms rather, or Reese's peanut butter cups for Siegel. However, Ron, based on your petite figure, it looks like you are not eating a lot of those things lately. So good for you, my friend. Good for you. Let us know in the comments, what is your favorite candy, since today is National Candy Day? What is your favorite candy? Believe it or not, I'm going Butterfingers. Butterfingers. I used to say Reese's, but it's really not. I don't like milk chocolate that much, and I'm not a big fan of the chocolate for Reese's. I much prefer Butterfingers. It's still a milk chocolate, but there's a lot more of the peanut buttery nougat. I'm going with Butterfingers today. That would be one of my favorites is Butterfingers. Love me a Butterfingers, but I don't eat a ton of candy. I'm getting better as I get older to not eat it. Although I do have a heck of a sweet tooth. Good morning, Tiffany Teal. Good morning, Allison Foy, Carolina Small. Rob Stewart, great to see you here as well. So, all right. Well, let's get into the good stuff while y'all are telling us what are your favorite candy. And I'll come back to that at the end. So we'll pull that back down here. So let's go ahead and give you a quick recap what happened yesterday, show the screens and all that good stuff. Let's go ahead. Morning, Robert Bashirs. Yeah, more coffee, less candy. I'm with you some days. All right. So yesterday, pricing came out, we were right around 1010, and we ended the day right around the same level. I mean, it was really flat on the day, really not much to talk about. As far as this morning, though, we're up 7 basis points on the moment. But if you see this spike right here, we weren't up 7 basis points a few seconds ago. We were only up a couple. It's really not all that great. 10-year Treasury yield, definitely want to keep an eye on. Take a look at this. Not now. I clicked wrong. There you go. Take a look at this red line that it's in. Let's move this to a month so we can get. So this red line right here that you're watching, and I'll switch this to yellow because it comes up better. This red line here, that is the 50-day moving average. Yesterday, the 10-year closed above the 50-day moving average. This is not what we want to see. However, good news is that it's moving back down below that today. So the 50-day moving average is about 4.10. We're at 4.9. So it's a good sign that it's opening back below that there. As far as mortgage-backed security, same thing. Take a look here. We'll do the 3 months so you can see them a little clearer. The 50-day moving average, this red line right here, we want to be watching that. So today, rate sheets are about the same as yesterday. Not good enough to let our guard down, but not bad. Again, we are watching this 50-day moving average. Yesterday, mortgage-backed securities closed above that. We want it to be above that. Over here for the 10-year yield, it's the opposite. We want it to be below that number. But for mortgage bonds, we want it to be above that number. So we're good here. The fact that this morning we're up a little bit, it's a good sign. We've got a little bit of a curve, whereas last time around we talked about this was when we had the Fed meeting and then things went down and down and down. And it took about a week before we hit rock bottom and then bounced back up. This time around, a little bit less so. And I think part of the reason for that is because we just don't have any data. We've got the government shutdown, so we're not getting the data. Reprice risk on the day today is low. It's a calm day. Bonds are drifting sideways. We should have gotten JOLTS data today, and we did not. So keep that in mind. But so those are the technicals for the day. Now, what else are we going to be talking about? Well, let's talk about cardboard boxes and what cardboard boxes tell us. Also, Supreme Court will begin hearing testimony tomorrow about the Trump tariffs, and is that going to have any kind of an effect on rates, or what effect could it have? We'll talk about that for a minute real quick. And then last but not least, I want to explain the spread a little bit because I've had some questions about that. Logan Mohtashami he talks a lot about the spread, but people are like, what does that mean, the spread? Are we talking Nutella? Are we talking Jif? Is it that does like Peter Pan peanut butter? What are we spreading here? What is the spread? So first things first, let's talk a little bit about cardboard boxes. Take a look at this article here. This is an interesting one. It is on Bloomberg. A slump in cardboard box sales is stoking fears of a lackluster holiday. So once again, when we don't have government data, we don't have a lot of the data points people are looking for. They're looking for signs everywhere else. They're looking under rocks. So corrugated box shipments fell to the lowest third quarter reading since 2015. And this is a big deal because it could mean that we're going to see a much lower fourth quarter retail season, right? With holiday and holiday sales. Packing companies have warned economic uncertainty is weighing on retailers and consumers. Box plants reporting flat or below normal orders in October. The U.S. box industry shipments are poised to drop due to factors like trade uncertainty, soft consumer sentiment, and weak housing market. People need boxes when they move. So this kind of a thing, again, this catches attentions because we're looking for signs of what are we going to see in the fourth quarter when we don't, we're not having the labor market data and things that we want. So this is, one of those things. It's just kind of worth talking about. But yeah, Robert said people stop moving. Well, you got less houses, less people moving. So yeah, that's less boxes. Is why we're getting that. And then the Supreme Court going to, again, this actually is tomorrow. It's not today. So Supreme Court begins hearing tariff testimony tomorrow, right? And this was an interesting article. Kind of goes into, what would happen and why. So first of all, remember the president does not have the ability to just pass sweeping tariffs the way that Trump has, except in times of emergency. And that's why, as I've talked about before, this is always under the guise of national security and some kind of an emergency requirement. And I think that the tariffs, the emergency powers that Trump utilized in his second term versus what he utilized in his first term are different. Um, Alongside the tariffs at issue, Trump has imposed a number of levies on industries, including automobile, steel, aluminum, copper, under a separate national security authority known as Section 232. So he's used that one, and then he's used it doesn't say which one he was used, something from 1977. Here it is. Now, three lower courts have rejected the tariffs on the grounds that Trump improperly relied upon a 1977 law that grants the president powers to regulate the economy during an emergency. Okay, so that's kind of the question of what's going on here. Now, here's the thing, right? So there's been tens of billions, maybe over 100 billion in tariffs collected. So through August, and we're in October, the government had collected around 90 billion from tariffs. So that was through August. So obviously we've collected more since then. And I mean, you're talking over 100 billion. And the question is, if it was found to be illegal, would the United States have to return that money? And in theory, yes, because if money is collected without authorization, typically the Fed has to give it back, but there's tremendous complications to that. A repayment program of such scope would be unprecedented. The administration's indicated it thinks it could be impossible to do because of potentially dire consequences for the Treasury and the economy. Could you imagine if you could just be like, yeah, I'm not going to pay my bills because it would leave me in a really bad position financially, and I'm just not going to do that? Wouldn't it be nice if you could just pull that card? But more so is there's already checks, there's already like redundancies being worked on in this current administration for if the Supreme Court does rule that Trump was not able to legally impose the tariffs that he has imposed. The question also becomes what would happen to the trade deal. So this is quite messy. Will this have an effect on mortgage rates? That's really our question. I don't think it's going to have a large effect. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I don't think it's going to have a large effect because I think it'll play out with some drama, but I don't think the United States is going to be giving back any money. I don't think any of our trade deals are going to get washed out. And I think that Trump will just accelerate, at 100 miles an hour through whatever ruling they get, and then say that they're still imposing the tariffs, but with some other legal precedent behind it. And, what is the Supreme Court going to do to enforce this? How do you enforce it? So I don't think that we're going to see this have an effect on mortgage rates. I don't think markets will have a very strong reaction to this news. In theory, it should be a really big deal to markets, but I don't think that it will. And again, let me know in the comments if you guys think that it will and kind of where we're at on that. And then the last thing that I wanted to kind of go over with y'all is the spread. So I asked ChatGPT in order to make it easier. Let me just slide this over a little bit so that here we go. Okay. So that way I might not ramble when we get into it. So I said, explain to me the spreads between the 10-year Treasury yield and mortgage-backed securities. What are the spreads based on? How do they change and who controls it? So this was actually a really well thought out way of expressing it. So the spread between the 10-year Treasury yield and mortgage-backed securities are the extra yield investors demand for holding mortgage-backed securities instead of treasuries. Now, remember, treasuries are supposed to be the most secure debt in the world because it's backed by the US government. So if we look at a 10-year treasury yield right now, and basically, let's say that the 10-year treasury yield is 4.09. So basically, you're getting a return of $4.09 for every $100 that you were buying, right? That's oversimplification, but let's kind of get that point across, right? So if you buy mortgage-backed securities, if you could get a yield of $4.09 back, why would you get why would you want to buy mortgage-backed securities? Well, mortgage-backed securities have to give you a higher return because there's more risk to mortgage-backed securities. The spread compensates investors for the risk of prepayment risk. When rates fall, homeowners refinance, or you could have foreclosures are also a prepayment risk. So that's part of it. Extension risk. When rates rise, prepayments slow, the investor is stuck holding the bond longer at below market yields. So, for example, if you're getting a return of 3% when everything else is giving 5%, then that would be a problem. So that's part of it as well. Liquidity risk. Mortgage-backed securities are less liquid than treasuries, especially in volatile markets, meaning there's more of an appetite and demand for treasuries than there is for mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities do have a very deep market, though. And then servicing and guarantee costs charge, Fannie Freddie charge guarantee fees baked into the yield as well. So this is what the spread compensates for. And this, again, the spread is the difference in yield that is paid because it is a riskier asset and the rate of return. So kind of giving that. Yeah. And Ron, the reason is I've gotten a couple questions on this because of Logan's article. Logan, mortgage spreads hit lowest level in years, keeping rates near 6%. And people they're not clear on what the spreads are or what they're talking about, because Logan talks about the spreads, but he doesn't really explain them. And again, Logan really gets into the technicals a whole lot more than I do. But he got into where the spread was 2.75 in 2023. In other words, again, oversimplification, but just to get the point across, let's say your return on a 10-year treasury was going to be 5%. Your return on mortgage bonds would need to be 7.75%. That was that higher difference. That's what that spread is. And then right now it's down to 2.12%, meaning you're getting a higher return on mortgage-backed securities than you do on the 10-year because of that extra risk that's incurred, which we talked about here. So what's important to note about all of this is that the spread has dropped down. So that allows mortgage rates to improve at a better rate than compared to the 10-year yield. So when the 10-year yield, it's moved to 4.08, it's not down to 3, but yet mortgage pricing and mortgage rates are better than where they were in the past when the 10-year was at 4.08, right? So let's say in the past it was at 4.08 and mortgage rates were at 7. And now you're at 4.08 and mortgage rates can be at 6.5. And that's because that spread has reduced. The risk of investing in mortgage bonds is less than it was previously. So you have better rates of return. So you're seeing lower mortgage rates, even though when we watch the 10-year treasury as an indicator. And that's why we're kind of going over that. So that's your nutshell version. Hopefully that will help you. Ron said, oops, you might actually want to know the spread between the 10-year and mortgage rates, not MBS. Yeah, I mean, what are you can expound on that. I'm not quite sure where you're going on that one. But anyway, so that's what we got, y'all. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. We'll see. Cardboard boxes, are they going to make a big difference? We'll find out, all that other stuff. Otherwise, let's go back to, bottom line is simple, historical spread. Now, are you talking about between the 10-year and mortgage rates, or are you talking about the spread between MBS and 10-year, Ron, when you talk about that one? Let's go ahead and do the question of the day. Today is National Candy Day, which, how do you have that 5 days after Halloween? Wouldn't you think that? So I'm sure we probably talked about this on Halloween, but what's your favorite candy anyway? We just talked about that. Like, this is a sucky one because we just talked about that one. So, but anyway, I appreciate all of you, and I'm gonna wrap it up. We won't worry too much about that today. So hide message. All right. So that's it, my friends. It's gonna be a boring one. We're gonna wait and see where everything goes. Let me throw the lock advice up here though, because I don't think I did throw that up there yet. Yeah, you're doing the 10-year and 30-year. Okay. Here we go. Loans closing near-term risk averse. I'm locking for protection just because there's certainly not enough improvement to get excited about. And we could see rates continue to creep higher, but loans that, can't lock yet, it's farther out. There's no urgency. There's nothing to panic about. That's the good news. So that's what we've got going on with that stuff. But Halloween, we collect candy. Today we're eating. And there you go, man. There you go. So, all right, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic day. I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make it a great one. Bye-bye.